Okay, so the last thing that we're going to want to do before we're ready to export everything is do a fill for the ground planes and or plane, depending on if you're doing single-sided or a double-sided PCB. So if you've been playing along with me so far, I've actually put a couple things. If we look at our bottom layer, I actually put uh, a component on the bottom layer. So we actually have two sides to this board that we might want to do. And we're going to send it to OSHPARK. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up and do both sides for you here. So we're going to work on exporting and our fills, the final stage for this video. So we want to fill everything and connect it to ground. And so we're going to use this button, this add filled zone button that has a blue rectangle. We're going to click it and we're going to just click outside of our board outline and it's going to pull up for us which layer or layers we want to use. And we're going to do, we want this to connect to ground. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and click both layers because I want both layers to be ground filled. So awesome. And we will use a solid fill. So amazing. And you can see there are options for how our thermal reliefs look like when we talked about that in class. Like if you're soldering or trying to get a part to stick to ground, which all of the parts basically will connect to ground. Almost all of the parts will connect to ground. If it's one giant piece of copper that you're trying to solder it to, it's going to be very hard to heat up and it's not going to do, you're going to have like not good solder joints. And so it's important to add little thermal reliefs so that when you try to heat up right at that pad, it actually gets hot enough to melt the solder and form a solid connection. So it's also possible to do a hatched fill instead of a solid fill, but that's not something we're going to do today. So, okay, so I just clicked, we're doing it both on the front and the back. Why not? And we're using a ground pattern. And now we're just going to go around the outside of my board outline. And once I've successfully done that, I will double click to close the shape. And there it is. And now I can hit B in order to fill them, or else I always forget where this should go. B, or is it tools? Do we see it? Where is, no, it's edit, isn't it? Fill all zones, B, or unfill all zones, potentially, if you're going back to routing traces. But our last step is going to be to fill all zones. So we can go to edit, fill all zones, or we can just hit the letter B. And we can now see, if we sort of like click on here, everything is now on the front layer is red. And if we zoom in, our ground has been connected with thermal reliefs. Our ground on the Arduino has also been connected with thermal reliefs. So that's great. That looks wonderful. Everything else is safely separated from ground. And then if we go to the other side, we can also see we've left all the copper on here. This has been connected to ground, and these pads have also been connected to ground. And because of these through hole pads, we can see that the ground on the back is now connected to the ground on the front, and we have a completed, ready to go board. You should, as always, just check it one last time, make sure that you feel good about it. As I mentioned in class, so we might want to unfill this, unfill all zones, and then maybe on the copper layer, we add some text. It'll be engraved in there. Hello world, hello Forge. We can change the size and the font. Let's make it something cool. I don't know. Let's make it big. Lovely. So we can engrave that on one side, and let's hit B and refill everything. And you can see it fills around it in the thing. And we can again view that in our 3D viewer. And if we take the mask off, we see the copper layer. And there it is. We have this whole thing ready to go. So it's ready to go. We have succeeded. We have designed what we need to fabricate. And so typically with PCB files, you make Gerbil files, Gerber files, and drill files. And if we click on File, Fabrication Outputs, Gerber, You can see a few different formats. This is where we're going to export everything always. It's always going to be file, fabrication outputs, Gerbers. So we can generate our drill files. So we want to do that. That's just like any holes in our design. It will put a point where those holes go. And then we can pick the layers that we want to output as Gerber files or as other types of files should we need to export other types of files. So if we're going to go ahead and try to send this to OSHPARK, which I'm going to show you how to do right now, we'll use our Gerber files. The other thing is Gerber has been updated recently to be an X2 format that actually has a Gerber job that tells you a lot more details, which most of like OSHPARK should accept and will be better than just a normal Gerber file. But we're basically ready to go. And then like this is the one unit thing that you might click on at some point, but for the default should be good. So we just make sure we have the layers that we need in order to send it off. We're going to generate our drill files, generate drill file. We're going to plot, and we're done. So now if we go over to our Finder, and we go to wherever I saved this, which hopefully it's in this folder somewhere. Uh-oh, let's see. Where do we think it is? In here? Forge demo. Great. We have a bunch of stuff from right now. So you can see we have our back copper. We have a bunch of stuff from today at 341, right? Which is what I just kicked off. So I'm just going to organize this by date modified. Here's all the files that we just got. I'm just going to literally compress them into a zip file. And then I'm going to go to OSHPARK. And I'm going to literally just drop this onto OSHPARK. So I just sorted by the last made time, dropped all of these things into a zip file, and I dropped it into the OSHPARK web interface. Let's see what happens. So we'll just wait for this to process. And there it is. So you can see we have our fish test board. It's going to cost $500, probably because it's gigantic. Let's see. Let's just try this. Let's see what happens. Let's see if they'll let me continue. And we can actually see what OSHPARK has interpreted our file as. So this is like the final manufactured board. That's what it looks like. And I've sort of drowned out our parts with how big I've made the board outline. You can see the drills. You can see the board outline. You can see the copper on the bottom layer. You can see the silk screen that's drawn onto the bottom layer. You can see the solder mask. You can see the top layer, copper. You can see the top silk screen, right? Which there's not a lot for us to show here. But you can see every single layer, and you can double check that it has done exactly what you were expecting it to do before you submit and buy. So this is what I'd love to see from you, and it's just that simple, right? We literally just export our Gerber files, right? We go into File, Fabrication Outputs, Gerbers. We basically just click Generate Drill Files and Plot. We go find our files in our Finder. We zip them all together and drop it into the web interface. And so there you go. These are the sort of final steps you can send off a board. In the next video, we'll talk quickly about how to send this to Carvera and what that looks like.